Welcome to Annapolis Mosaics. Our program spotlights people in our city who are involved in activities intended to promote good human relations. I am Michael Keller, the chair of the Annapolis Human Relations Commission and your host. The commission is a city board that seeks to promote equal opportunity and to eliminate discrimination. My guest today is Lucia Martin, who is a school counseling specialist for the Anne Arundel County Public Schools. Lucia, welcome to Annapolis Mosaics.
Hi, Mike. I'm happy to be here.
Well, according to the National School Safety Center, 90% of all the students in grades 4 through 8 nationally have reported that they have been the victims of bullying. And there has been, in the United States, an increasing number of teen suicides due to bullying. Now, bullying has existed in the schools as long as there have been schools. But it seems to have become more troublesome and pervasive in recent years. Would you agree with that statement? And if so, why do you think this phenomenon is happening?
Well, I think it's more noticeable. We notice it more because we have more access to media that lets us be aware of it. There's social media out there that young people are communicating on. I think we're paying more attention to it, and so I think adults, parents, staff, and children recognize bullying when it's occurring as bullying, not as perhaps teasing or name-calling or threatening, but recognize it as bullying per se, which kind of makes a difference in that way.
The Anne Arundel County Public Schools have a bullying prevention initiative.
Yes.
Could you tell our viewers about it?
Well, we've actually been working on this idea of preventing bullying for about 7 or 8 years. A few years back, there was a push to survey students, staff, and parents about things they were concerned about. And bullying was one of the things that all three groups expressed a concern about. So a group of folks at the Board of Education began working on this issue with the help of some partners from Johns Hopkins University. And with some consultation with some people from the University of Maryland, we kind of looked at the research about what needed to be present in a good bullying prevention program. And there were several things that the research said needed to be included, and so we developed our prevention efforts around those elements. One of those elements is kind of a survey or a questionnaire to determine where bullying's occurring, what it looks like, who's engaged in the bullying, and to what degree, and what happens when it occurs. As a result of learning that we needed to include that, our system has been doing an annual bullying prevention survey online with students in grades 4 to 10, parents and staff for 7 years. I think this last administration was our 7th. We do it yearly, and people who are interested in participating, parents and other community members, can kind of look for information from the school system about when that survey is running. The second thing that the research kind of said needed to be present in a good bullying prevention initiative is programs based on the results of the survey or the needs assessment. And so the results of our survey are available to school staff almost immediately after it's administered because it is web-based. So right after the first of the year, when students come back from the holiday break, whenever that happens to be, Administrators of buildings have access to their own building results to be able to identify what kinds of things they need to be targeting, where they need to be targeting them, and what groups they need to be looking at. So they're using those survey results to really target their efforts rather than just kind of randomly throwing programs at them. Research also says that there needs to be support for the targets of bullying, as well as efforts to work with the students who are engaging in bullying behavior to help them cope with things in a different way. So in our school system, students who report bullying receive support from student services personnel, school counselors, school psychologists, school social workers if they're available, school nurses, to help them be more resilient to bullying. And students who are engaging in bullying behavior receive consequences for that behavior through our Code of Student Conduct, and also receive some support from those student services people to help them get their needs met in a different way. Research also indicates there need to be some universal strategies out there for bullying prevention. So we have classroom guidance lessons, we have advisory lessons at the secondary schools, we have school-wide programs, we have newsletter articles, we have parent programs, all kind of focused on helping to develop an understanding of what bullying is and how to avoid it. So those are the major components of our program. One thing that we're particularly proud of is that we've been engaged in this work for a pretty long time. Back in 2009, the General Assembly mandated that all school systems in the state of Maryland have a bullying prevention policy that was to be based upon a model policy provided by the Maryland State Department of Education. When we had to develop our policy, we had all the pieces in place. So our program actually very much mirrors what MSDE mandated that we had to do, but we were ready to go with it.
What role do teachers play in this process, if any? And do teachers get any specific training from the school system in terms of bullying prevention? I can remember when I was growing up, teachers for the most part didn't deal with it. It was more or less that this was not something that was part of their attention. But I think things may have changed.
Right. Yes, it's real important that teachers really be aware of bullying behavior when it occurs. If you think about our survey, indicates that much of the bullying that occurs in the classroom. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. At the elementary level, they report bullying at recess also, in the hallway, in the cafeteria. Secondary students don't have recess, so they're not those opportunities. So it kind of makes sense that the classroom would be the place. It's important for teachers to know how to respond when bullying is reported, and not to kind of poo-poo it or brush it off as something that doesn't need to be handled, because it doesn't stop if there isn't some intervention. We have some real specific kinds of things that we're looking for when we talk about bullying behavior. We're talking about the behavior being intentional, that it's repeated over time, that it's intended to cause harm, that there's a power differential, that one of the people is in a position of more power than the other, whether it's because they are older or bigger or more popular or more academically gifted, and that it causes some, the state refers to it as a hostile educational environment. Basically, it means that kids don't feel comfortable to be at school or safe. So teachers need to be aware of when those behaviors are occurring that meet that definition, and then they need to know how to report it. They need to be careful not to take sides in a situation like that, but to be good support for all children involved, and then to report it using the bullying reporting form that's mandated by COMAR. So teachers have a big role to play, and I think they can also introduce ideas about tolerance and acceptance and differences in their classrooms that can prevent students from engaging in bullying behavior. If everybody feels accepted and bullying behavior is not accepted in a classroom, then there's less likelihood that it'll occur.
Some school systems have used student-to-student mentoring as a technique in overcoming bullying. Is this something that you've looked at in Anne Arundel County?
We haven't too much. I think as a prevention technique, it's a great idea. I think once bullying behavior is actually occurring, I don't know how much research base there is for that. But if you have students whose social skills or differences kind of lead to their being targets of bullying, having some mentoring in terms of developing resilience to bullying actually would probably be a pretty good idea.
You'd mentioned earlier that you do have a program that's targeted to the perpetrators of bullying. How effective have you found those programs and those efforts to work in terms of really changing the behavior of these students who engage in this? Do you find that you're able to turn these children around, or does a situation arise in which they sometimes have to be separated from the classroom? What's been your experience in terms of the outreach to those who are actually engaged in bullying activity?
I think
and what do you do? And what kinds of things do you do?
Well, there are a number of things that we do. One thing that we do with both the child who's engaging in bullying behavior and the target of the bullying behavior is to create a safety plan with each of those children. So the young person who is the target is creating a plan about what to do if the bullying should recur. But with the child who's engaging in the bullying behavior, we are helping them kind of plan how to avoid situations in which they might feel tempted to engage in those behaviors, and how to get their needs met in a different way. Because bullying is a very powerful kind of behavior. You know, there's some false belief out there that people engage in bullying behavior because they have low self-esteem or they don't. That's not true. I mean, you know, they're pretty powerful. And if you think about people that you might know as an adult who engage in bullying behavior, because there are adult bullies, they're pretty powerful kind of appearing people, and they wouldn't engage in those behaviors if they weren't. So we want to really help these young people who are engaging in bullying behavior accept some responsibility for their behavior, develop some empathy for the targets of their behavior, and then develop some strategies to get those needs met in a more pro-social, proactive kind of way. So
we're going to take a break now, but when we return, I will be talking with Lucia Martin about the impact that bullying has on students in school.
Hi, I'm Annapolis Mayor Josh Cohen, and I want to tell you about a new free way for you to enjoy downtown Annapolis. Our unique shops, our dining, our entertainment, and our historic maritime charm.
Did you know that Annapolis has a new circulator trolley that will shuttle you free from one end of the central business district to the other? Well, after parking at Knighton or Park Place Garage for just $5 a day, you can get on the circulator by simply raising your hand anywhere along the route and see what downtown Annapolis has to offer. For more information, go to annapolis.gov and click on circulator.
We're talking today with Lucia Martin, who is a school counseling specialist with the Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and our topic is on bullying. The use of cell phones and social media has taken bullying beyond the perimeters of schools. I mean, it used to be that, as you said earlier, bullying occurs in the classroom, but also at recess and in the lunchroom and in the school halls and sometimes in the gym and physical education. But when the student leaves the school, then they at least have a reprieve from it. But now with social media, through things like Facebook and others, and through the use of cell phone technologies, as well as others, students sometimes get no relief from the bullying. This is it almost takes the form of sort of an extracurricular bullying, and I suspect that has been a factor in some of the more disturbing cases in which children have tried to harm themselves because they're so overwhelmed by this behavior. Understanding that you work for the school system and that the school system can't easily go beyond the boundaries of the school, what kinds of things can be done societally to deal with the concept which is called cyberbullying, which has taken on a very pernicious feature in our society today?
Yeah, if you see the look of concern on my face, it's because we are not really able to keep up with how young people are using technology to engage in social interactions. And often in the schools, we aren't aware that cyberbullying is occurring until it has some kind of a negative impact on behavior at the school. You're absolutely right. A student who's being bullied in that way is being bullied 24/7, and unless we know about it, there's not a whole lot we can do. And even if we do know about it, unless it has a connection with the school, we as a school system can't really do too much about it, except for work with parents and try to work with students to educate them about what to do if it's occurring and how to handle it if they are not feeling safe because of being bullied through electronic media. So we do have classroom lessons that focus on cyber safety. We have, through our Office of School and Community Partnerships, a parent workshop to go that focuses on bullying and cyberbullying, and there's a section about what parents should do. Parents really need to be aware of what their young people are doing with technology, and I think we're kind of, as adults, kind of intimidated by it because the kids know more about it than we do, and they don't want us seeing what they're seeing, but parents absolutely need to know what their children are doing out there in cyberspace. If their children have a cell phone, they need to know what kinds of text messages they are getting with those cell phones. If they're up online, they need to know where they're going. If they're getting emails, they need to know what it looks like. And they absolutely need to be monitoring their use of social media. Otherwise, things may be happening to their children that they would not dream of. And kids who would never engage in that kind of behavior, that kind of aggressive behavior, face-to-face, are out there. It's a faceless audience, and they don't really understand the impact that the behavior that they have in forwarding messages and saying things in cyberspace has on others.
What impact does bullying have? This can be any form of bullying, in terms of student outcomes, specifically attendance in school, the grades that students get, and their graduation prospects.
Well, the research says that students who are chronically bullied tend to, their attendance tends to suffer. Because why would you want to go to a place where you are miserably unhappy and afraid for your safety? And because their attendance suffers, and because they're obsessing about being safe, they can't attend to their work, so they can't pay attention well, so they tend to not do as well grade-wise. And there's a good bit of research that shows that students who are chronically bullied are good candidates for, or bad candidates for, high school dropout, which is really sad because it's something that's preventable. You know, chronic bullying can lead to depression and anxiety. It can lead to physical illness. And there's a lot to be said about, you know, just from the education part of it and our concerns about AYP and attendance and dropout and graduation rate, and really addressing the issue assertively.
Gay, lesbian, and transgender students have been especially vulnerable to bullying in the schools. What can be done to deal with this particular problem, with this particular constituency?
I'm really glad you asked that question because it's something that we are really, in our student services group, really focusing on this year. The research kind of indicates that if gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, questioning young people have a support system in a school, that then they tend to be less vulnerable to bullying behaviors. So some things that we have done are to encourage our secondary schools, all of our secondary schools, not just our high schools, but our high schools and our middle schools, to pilot GSA, Gay Straight Alliance groups, to provide some support for those students. And it's interesting, many of them are kind of chaired by not necessarily our student services folks, but we have teachers, school nurses, and other school staff who are taking the lead with those groups. We have purchased Safe Spaces kits from GLSEN for all of our schools, and those kits include a sticker that goes in the window of a teacher who is supportive of that population, and then those students will know that that's a safe space for them to go and feel supported. The other thing that we've done and will continue to do is to offer courses for our student services people, our school counselors, our school psychologists, school social workers, school nurses, about working with gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, questioning youth families, because we have quite a few diverse families that we were not used to working with, 10 years ago. And also our staff who are gay, lesbian. So we piloted our first class just recently. We had great attendance in it. We'll offer it now from here on out in the fall and in the spring.
What other groups of students, if any, have been particular targets for bullying? Things like based on students' grade level, gender, race, disability, nationality. Are there other types of students beyond those dealing with sexual orientation who have been more prevalent targets for bullying behavior?
Well, we know nationally, and it's kind of reflected in our data, that students who receive special education services often are targeted. Often they don't necessarily have the social skills to know how to cope with a bullying situation. Our bullying survey results for our county indicate that kids are most often targeted for bullying based on how they look, how they dress, and how much money their parents have. That's what kids are reporting. So it kind of varies from school to school. I worry about schools that have minority populations that are really minority populations, where there are only a few of a particular ethnic group or race in a school. I think those schools have to do a lot more proactive work to build that tolerance and acceptance than perhaps a school that's more ethnically diverse.
If a parent becomes aware that their child is being bullied, how do they report it?
Thank you. That's a great question. Years before the mandate for the school systems to have policies about bullying, for several years before that, the General Assembly mandated that school systems use a bullying and harassment reporting form, and that it be offered to parents, students, other relatives, and staff to report bullying that they observe. It's mandated that we use it. It's available on our website. It's available in schools. And if a parent is aware, if a parent is afraid or aware that their child is being bullied, they can do one of two things. One is they can encourage their child, if it's an older child, to complete the form and turn it in, or they themselves can complete the form and turn it into their school administration. Once that form, that reporting form, is completed and submitted, it is investigated in the school. That is part of our policy, and some steps will be taken. If it's verified that bullying has occurred, then the parent of the student engaging in bullying and the parent of the target will be informed that it's been verified and that their students will be referred for the support that we talked about before, and consequences will be applied for the student who is engaging in the bullying. If it's not verified, the parent of the target, the reporter, will be informed that it wasn't verified. Sometimes bullying is reported and it's not really bullying. Sometimes it's teasing. Sometimes it's an attack or an assault. Sometimes it's a threat. Sometimes it's stealing. And we're going to handle those behaviors through our Code of Student Conduct.
Right.
We just won't handle them as bullying behavior if it's not.
Right. If our viewers wanted more information about the issues that we've discussed today and about bullying, how can they get in contact with you or with the Board of Education?
They can call our Board of Education at the general number. It's 410-222-5000, and ask for the school counseling office.
Okay.
And my colleague or I can answer questions.
Right. Thank you for viewing our program today, and please join us again on Annapolis Mosaics. If you would like more information about the Annapolis Human Relations Commission, jot down the information on your screen. You can reach us at 410-263-7998 or by email at hrcommission@annapolis.gov. And check out our page at the City of Annapolis website. Go to www.annapolis.gov and then click on the icon under Boards and Commissions at the home page, and then scroll down to the Human Relations Commission page. And always remember the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "We have flown the air like birds and swum the seas like fishes, but have yet to learn the simple act of walking the earth as brothers and sisters."